things that happen on a day-to-day basis that are going to create inefficiencies in your workflow and be able to capture them throughout your job costs, because everyone's gonna experience them. Nobody is insulated and protected from that.
Tyler,
What's up?
are, I don't know. Everything. So I had a call with an architect earlier today, and I want to talk about, it was the first time I felt as though I fully communicated what we do, how we do it, why we do it. And so much so that he was basically regurgitating it back to me, and I was sold.
Dude, that's the best.
I felt great. So I want to dig into that. It's centered around pre-construction, but primarily, how we're leveraging that to be an advocate for our client and the architect. And I do get a little heated with some architect comments, and I might pick on a few of them. But that's all part of the conversation. But before we get into that, I want to talk about your race. Let's do that.
Oh yeah, let's do that first. I'm still all jacked up about it. This podcast is brought to you by Andersen. So what do you actually know about the windows and doors that you are putting in homes? We know our experiences with them, right? We know the spec sheet. We know what the sales rep tells us, but how well do you know how they're made? Well, Nick and I got a first-hand look at how Andersen makes their 100 series windows in Arizona. And let me tell you, it's the real deal. The material, the design, the technology, the insane precision that goes into every single window. Their entire process has backups and checks to ensure everything's done the right way. With their system, you can see how they're able to offer such a high-quality product at such a compelling price point. But seeing is believing, so watch our whole Andersen 100 series facility tour at andersenwindows.com.
And we got a special sponsor. If you want to see what's new and what's next in residential construction, it's all going down at NAHB International Builder Show, February 17th through the 19th in Orlando. You'll find top builders, products, brands, and trends that are shaping the industry. And here's the bonus. NAHB is giving Modern Craftsman listeners 50 free IBS Expo passes. They're going fast, so jump on it. Go to buildersshow.com/moderncraftsman, and you can get a free pass today.
We are also going to be sending out an email with that link, and we have a lot more than 50 people on our email list.
First come, first serve.
Yeah, so first come, first served. If you're not on that email list, sign up for that immediately. But those 50 IBS Expo passes are going to be going quick. So sign up for the email list. Keep an eye on your email. I'm not telling you when they're going out, just that email is going to be going out. So you might want to hop on that. This podcast is brought to you by Buildertrend. If you're a bookkeeper or you've got one on your team, you already know the end of the year is chaos. Missing receipts, job costs that need sorting, surprise invoices, it all comes crashing down in December. And honestly, it doesn't have to be that painful. Buildertrend makes year-end bookkeeping so much easier by keeping your job costs, invoices, payments, budgets, all of it in one connected place. And we're digging through emails or chasing your field guys or girls for info they should have entered months ago. If your year-end scramble feels worse than job site after demo day, it's time to see how Buildertrend can help clean it up. Schedule a free demo at buildertrend.com/mcdemo.
This podcast is also brought to you by Harnish Workwear. I'm just going to riff on this for a minute. So I had what I found out the other day. I don't think I told you this, Tyler, but I had one of the original Creator One pants. And I ripped them, which is not common for those pants. And
I'm wearing them right now. I'm not even going to lie. And now you have me slightly concerned.
I am wearing mine right now as well. And I didn't know, I couldn't understand why they ripped, because they're quite literally indestructible. And the crotch ripped open.
Impressive.
Very impressive. Alex sends me a new pair. I put them on and I'm like, holy shit, these feel better. And so we hop on a text and he was like, Nick, you had the demo version. Like that was the demo, like that was the first, like one of the first pairs we had that we were demoing for durability. Now I'm wearing the actual ones. They're also darker because he's like, oh, they're black. I'm like, not the ones I have. They're like blue gray. He goes, no, they're black. And so whatever, come to find out I had one of the original trial ones. However, the Creator One pants, I'm not just saying this. I literally wear them to work and I wear them when I'm not working. They are warm. They are light. It's athletic workwear is essentially what this, what it is. It's, if you're familiar with Lululemon or one of these other brands that you wear these kind of light, kind of athletic or athleisure is the word I was looking for. It's like that, but for workwear, super durable, super warm and light. So yeah, I'm wearing my hoodie because it's freezing out. And of course, underneath I have my Harnish t-shirt on, but this podcast is brought to you by Harnish. We are a huge supporter of them. It's our t-shirts, it's our sweatshirts, it's the Creator One pants. And they have some insane deals on harnishworkwear.com. So check them out. Be a supporter. Try out their Creator One pants. I'm telling you, as it's getting colder out, it's worth getting a pair. And I think they have a special going on that if you get the pair of pants and one of their hooded sweatshirts, you get a pretty deep discount.
So I meant to send this photo to them, but at my race, not while I was racing, but to the race and then after the race, I have on their pants, but the original ones. So there's no logos or anything on them. But I was like, they took my picture for High Point A at the race and I have the pants on. I meant to send it to them, but you just reminded me.
I think it was a YouTube video we did a couple weeks ago and people were like, yo, what are those pants? And I was like, nice.
Dude, I just started wearing them because it like got super cold out and I normally wear jeans. The problem with me is like when I paint,
you're a wiper. You're a wiper, man.
Dude, and like I'm painting my house right now. So like I wear my creator pants to work, which carpentry, great. But then when you're like painting, even like I'm caulking the other night and I have a rag and a bucket, but then like I put caulk on my caulk gun, it touches my pants, I wipe it on the floor, I kneel in it, and I'm like, I'm just trashing these. So I normally don't wear them to work, but it's been cold out. I've been working outside and I started wearing them. And every person from my customer to my wife to like Justin at work was like, oh, do you get new pants? Like, I did. Thanks. So yeah, I've been rocking them lately and I'm pleasantly, I'm pleased with the performance, with the warmth, durability, everything so far.
I think it's worth noting too. They do like the small, medium, large, extra large scale, so it's not a inseam measurement. And I actually ordered the wrong size. I thought I was like, oh, I'm a large t-shirt. I must be a large pair of pants. I'm actually a medium pant, 6 feet tall, and about 185 pounds. So I end up wearing a medium. A large I fit into, but I got to wear a belt to tighten up the.
Yeah, I'm a large and I'm 6'3", 200 pounds. And they fit good.
Yeah. So check them out.
So I told you I had a race this weekend.
No, you didn't tell me you had a race this weekend. You told me you won the race this weekend.
I did well. So I didn't know. So I haven't felt really great on my bike in, I don't know. It feels as though it's been a year, but realistically, it's been since the beginning of the season. I was having suspension issues, and then I tried to make some changes and getting a revalve and stuff, and it'd get a little better, and then it wouldn't. And I was just like, you know what? Screw this. I'm just putting my stock suspension back on, which like you get to a point and the stock stuff just limits you, especially with my size. And I was like, I'm just going to put my stock suspension on and just kind of go have fun and see what happens. So that's what I did. I was not going to race because the weather wasn't going to look great. And I was like, whatever, let's do it. And then I went to start the race, and my computer that keeps your odometer and time and everything that you're supposed to be like at certain race sections was broken. Like the wire was ripped off. So immediately I go to start the day and I was like, oh, there goes my day. And then I don't know if it was lack of pressure or what, but I was just like fully sending it out there all day. It was fun. But I think yesterday I was like still just pumped up and high from the weekend. And it was like a pretty physical race. And I woke up today and the bit of the high had worn off. And I'm like, damn, I'm sore and tired. And it's like nasty as hell out. It's like I just want to go back to sleep.
But you did win, didn't you? Didn't you come in first?
So I won my class, which is, so there's you have to be 18 to run these races because you run on roads and then you race private areas, either private property or state forest, but like specific race section. So there's ages, there's bike sizes, and then there's classes. So my class is A. So like beginning class is C, and then B, and then A, and then double A is pro.
Got it.
So there's only a certain amount of pro cards that they give out every year, and you have to race the full series to get a pro card, or a certain amount of the races you have to come in a certain percentage. So there's guys who will make pro, and then you get bumped back because you didn't race a full year 2 years later. So you get bumped back into A. So like A class is what I'm racing, and then I'm vet, which is 30 to 39. So next year I'll be going up to senior, which is crazy. So I won A30, and then I also won all of A. So that's called high point A. So that means that like I was the fastest of basically anyone except for a handful of pros who were ahead of me.
How much faster?
They were
Oh, you like who is next in line? How far behind were they?
So I've raced with my buddy Dom, who's 28, and he's very fast, and he ended up finishing 33 seconds behind me. But like the pros, the guy who won was probably 4 minutes ahead of everyone else, and then the other four guys. So I took 6th overall out of 190. Dom took 7th, but the second, third, fourth, and fifth were all within, I think, 60 or 70 seconds of me. So like,
how long of a race is that?
It's tough to say. I mean, it went from different sections. It was probably, all in all, it's probably like 30 miles worth of racing.
So 45 minutes ish?
No, longer. Like if you think on average, it was a faster race. So you think on average, maybe you're riding 20, 25 miles an hour.
Oh, okay. So you're
like
hour and 15.
Yeah. So 24 miles an hour is 4/10 per minute. So 30 miles. Yeah. 120. So a couple hours worth of racing. That's 2 hours, probably 2 hours worth of racing total.
Yeah.
But then like basically all the one guy who won wins everything all year long. But then the rest of the guys who were double A, we beat a couple of double A guys, but the guy who was double A, the guys who were 2nd through 5th, were all essentially within a minute faster than us. So like we scored 16 and they all scored 15s. And I think the guy who won scored like an 11 or something like that. He's just like much faster than everyone else.
Damn.
But yeah, like basically within a minute of all these guys. And we kind of had some timekeeping issues, like checking into the race sections a little late because my computer was broken. So Dom's normally not the one keeping time. So I think that like, I think we could have been on the same minute as them had we like checked into the sections when we could have, but that's how my mind always works. My wife's like, can't you just be happy? And I'm like, I was happy for like a second. Then I'm like, damn, well, what if I would have done this?
Right.
What if I would have done that? But yeah, it was thick. It was fun. It was the last race of the year. I hadn't felt well in a while. And I was just like, I don't know. The weather was kind of shitty, cold. And I guess with my computer breaking, the pressure came off of me and was just out there having fun.
That's dope.
But I'm feeling it today.
You, when you texted me, I can't remember if I was working. If I wasn't working, I was sitting there thinking about work. And you had texted me. And I'm like, God, I need a fucking hobby.
Yeah, it's good when it's good, right? But then
like we chat you and I chat all week, and then like on the weekends, like you're just like MIA.
Yeah.
And I'm like, he's probably working. It's like, dude, I just came in first. I'm like, oh, I'm sitting here doing finances. Like, man, I get it. Or, obviously I got hockey with the kids, but It was either if I'm at hockey, I'm watching the game and like writing down notes of things I need to do. But it was just funny.
Yeah. I was pretty pumped, to be honest. The like high point A is a really big deal because essentially like you're the fastest person other than pro.
Yeah,
and there's a lot of guys who race A, not necessarily this race, but who were pro before, but just don't race all the time now. So you're forced, like you're pushed back into A. So to win high point A is a big deal. Probably, something that won't happen a ton for me if ever again. But that's like a very big deal. So I was pretty pumped. And then like racing with my buddy Dom, we were 1 and 2 in A overall. And there's people who race the whole series who were like all bent out of shape because we don't race all the time. And so they're like, who the hell is this? Like these guys don't even race and they come in and they're battling for high point A and like kind of butthurt about it. And me and Dom were like, sorry.
Yeah.
We'll take the trophy. Let's go.
See you later.
And then I just give them to the kids.
It's awesome.
Yeah, it was fun. I had a good time. It was good to like end the year on that note, heading into winter.
Well, in a completely unrelated manner, had a call earlier today. I texted you about it, but with an architect.
Yeah.
And he had reached out to us. He was like, dude, I feel like you guys are just in a league of your own. You guys are doing really cool stuff. And he goes, I just don't, I would love to understand your process. And I remember I got off that call and thankfully I recorded the call because at that moment I was like, man, I did such a good job explaining what we do and how we do it and why it's important, to the point where he's like basically regurgitating back to me, like, the importance of it. And I feel like that's always how I judge if I'm getting my point across. It's also good when you're trying to sell something or in the position of selling to kind of like repeat back what they are saying, because it makes them feel like heard. But one of the things that I had said, he had asked if we were design build, and he did enough research on us, but not enough to know if we were design build or not. I said, no, we're not design build. However, we do take an approach where our job is to protect the vision of the architecture. And his eyes kind of perked up and was like, what does this mean? Like, what do you mean you're protecting the vision? And I was explaining how we look at construction in 3 verticals. It's pre-construction, construction, post-construction. Construction is self-explanatory, and I kind of walk through, high level. This is how we run construction. We're commercial based. We have a PM, we have a site super, we have in-house carpentry, in-house cabinetry and millwork team, and then operations layered on top of that oversee it. And we focus on 6 projects at a time from a custom perspective. And then post-construction is really just there in support. After we build the home, we want to help support the home, maintain the home, and we have a nice system to do that. But pre-construction is where we kind of differentiate ourselves in terms of the ultimate goal with the client, and that is to, from the client's perspective, it's to de-risk construction, but from the architect's perspective, it's to protect the vision.
Can we pause real quickly? I don't mean to get you off track, but like a lot of guys and girls that I know explicitly state that they are not design build, because I feel that you get to a point and most people want to be design build. So for people who are uncertain of what the difference is just in general between, like, people would look at what you do, what Brad does, and say, yeah, they're definitely a design build because you have your hand in design as well as building it. But like, what would you say is actually the difference between somebody who is a true design build company?
Well, I think true design build is exactly like they have design in-house and building in-house. So they have architecture or designers on staff that are working through the design, and then they have a team that builds. The interesting thing, because it's funny that you say everyone wants to be design build, because I don't know if that's true.
I think that it's like I don't think that if they knew exactly what it was, that's what they want. I just think that they want to have clients involved with their process at the design point.
They want to have clients involved at the
Like they
design.
don't just
Yeah,
want to be
yeah.
bidding work, right?
Yes.
They want to have their hands in the design or lock in the jobs at the
So this
design
is where I'm
stage. But they
going with,
don't realize that
yeah.
they don't have to own design to be able to
This
do
is
that.
exactly where I was going with the architect, the architect
Sorry.
today. No, that's fine. It's, this is where it's like, no, but we operate like design build because we get involved early. And I know we preach this constantly. We talk about pre-construction constantly, but I really want to dig into this hyper specifically about the way we do it, because I think that there's some things that, like, just frankly, when I communicated to today, I was like, man, those are the selling points of why this is so important. And it's not, it's way more. And we said this before, it's way more than estimating a project. But he was like, can you walk me through what this process typically looks like? And I said, sure. And ultimately I said, if you have a project, you're developing a project, ideally we get involved immediately. Like we just signed a pre-construction agreement with a client. They don't even have an architect yet. They had a lot. They ultimately decided to walk away from the lot, but we still have an agreement with them. They have a retainer with us. Like, it's just sitting there waiting for us to deploy time against it. But they know they want to work with us as a builder, and they have an understanding on who the architect's going to be. It's just they need the lot, another lot, and then they'll onboard the architect. That's an ideal situation because we are, from the beginning, we get to set the parameters, and we essentially, guide the design through that process. More common is where an architect has a schematic design. So, an architect came to us a couple of months ago, another project that we have under pre-construction. They had a schematic design put together, and we look at it and we give, we basically gave them a high level, what we call tier 1 estimate. And I had said this, if you guys aren't part of the Modern Craftsman newsletter, you should be, because I dig into a lot of this stuff hyper specifically.
We got a lot of emails from people in response to your email.
Yeah, I know. I was like, Tyler, don't delete these.
Don't delete these. I was like, what did he send out?
So but if you aren't part of that newsletter, moderncraftsman.co, sign up for it, because this is where I share a lot more. And it's the only place I really dig into the nitty gritty, and I'm sharing examples of some of these conversations. But I talk about the fact that, we do this tier 1 estimate, and it's usually a few hours worth of work. And it's like, hey, based on the information you're giving me, I think this project's going to be somewhere around $3 million. Now, initially, that conversation happens rather quickly in terms of getting them like in a ballpark around what that cost is going to be. But recently I've been doing this full tier 1, like super detailed proposal. And, I hadn't been doing that until we had a Precon for a long time. And it probably sounds like I'm contradicting myself, but what I have found is that I'm doing a few hours worth of work that allows me to go back to the client and show how much I understand about the building process. And it's giving them something to actually sink their teeth in. And I'm not necessarily doing full takeoffs. I'm ripping data out from other projects that are similar, and I'm plugging them in based on, some sort of calculation. Sometimes it's just like, hey, that house is very similar to this one that we bid or built. Why don't we just take that? And then you can do the simple thing. It's like, all right, that was $850 a square foot, just times it over on this house and get a budget. But that's where you're getting this kind of lump sum. What I've done in this case is I might go and take all of my line items and figure out, hey, what percentage of the overall cost are all of these line items, and then work backwards from the square foot price, or what the square foot price is per line item, whatever it is, and then plug that in. So now they have something that is realistic. I'm obviously scanning through it and saying, okay, well, you can't really, reduce the cost of a septic system, for that house versus this house. It's going to be the same. What I'm getting at here is I have found that by providing them especially on something that is more complicated, providing them something that shows not only that you understand how to build it, but how you are going to help control the project is giving our clients a lot of confidence in our approach. So our clients are looking at this like, wow, you really took the time to understand the project. And so this is the important part. We communicate like, hey, this is not a budget. Like, this is not your budget for your project. We cannot build off this. This is an effort to show you how we would go about pricing this. And our role now is to protect that. Going back to the architect for a minute. Oftentimes, in the broken system of bidding work, and even in pre-construction work, when there is a budget in mind, like every project, oftentimes the vision of the architecture is stripped. And you basically say, oh, well, they've designed a $5 million, house and your budget's $3 million. Like, the architect's designing something you can't afford. I want to be super clear. They hired you not to tell them. They didn't hire you to tell them that they can't build what they want. They hired you to tell them how they get what they want, or as close to it as possible. And I think in this scenario, like a $2 million swing is a lot, but let's just use that for a minute. Architect designs something, you go through, you're under pre-construction, you're really sinking your teeth into how this thing is built. It's $5 million. Client's budget's $3 million. Okay, at that point, we don't stop our work and then say, hey, it's $5 million. What do you want to do? And I'm going to come back to this whole what do you want to do thing a lot, because I think that is something that a lot of people are doing that is ruining, their opportunities in the marketplace. We say, all right, well, obviously this home is going to be $5 million. How do we bring an option to them that hits their requirement, their budget? Because they came to you and said, my budget is $3 million. Now, if in a different world, you might have been able to been involved earlier and then prevented this whole $5 million exercise, but you weren't. And your job is to find a $3 million path. So it might be that, hey, you communicate what is designed as $5 million, but here's how we can deploy $3 million appropriately. We'll phase out the pool house. We're going to reduce some of the scope here, and you kind of do this first pass at value engineering. And there's three things that I've basically boiled value engineering down to, and it's you can remove scope, reduce scope, or defer scope. And reducing is obviously the easiest one. It's like, what can I get rid of? And there's always 10, 20% of the scope of the project that a client likes but doesn't need. It's the stuff that the architect brings into onto the table as like they've explored it. It's something that they would really love, but it's not a high priority list for them. So focus on those things first. And then, okay, can you reduce things? Great example of, when you're building, a big house and it's got a ton of masonry on the exterior. It's like, okay, can you reduce that masonry on maybe the elevations that aren't as prominent, rather than spending, $200 a square foot for, masonry on the side of the home? What if you switch that to a shingle or a clapboard? And then deferring scope. And I think deferring is one that we find that a lot of people take advantage of is, hey, I know for example, a lot of times our basements are completely finished. A lot of our clients say, don't even worry about the basement. I know we want the craft room, the gym, the extra. That is not important to me. So if I can defer that until later, like a year from now, 2 years, 5 years from now, I will do that. And now you have all of these levers that you can start pulling, but you're not destroying the architecture of the project. And you're not in this like typical blaming cycle of, oh, it's over designed, so it's overpriced. Instead, you're working with the architect and again, protecting what they're trying to do, but doing it in a smarter way.
So I guess one of the questions that I have that I think most people are going to run into with this, and I think this is where it's coming from the architects as well, is how are people engaging architects? And did you have this conversation with the architect? Like, how are people engaging architects where they're coming to them and, right, you said it's a $3 million, a $5 million house. Like, what is that architect using? What information are they using to design that house without having a contractor on board? And to me, it's like, hey, this is what we've done, and this is how much this house or this project cost the past 5 years, 10 years, 15 years that I've been building them. But to me, that's not the most accurate way of doing things, because everybody prices things different, and the scope's different, and the level of detail and care and everything else is different. So, like, how are these architects beginning this, or beginning to develop this project and this relationship and this transaction with these clients without having somebody on board to help guide them as far as this is what this is supposed to cost?
I'm going to say something controversial because, and this is, and I'll preface it just to protect myself. This is not, every architect, but a lot of them don't care what budget. A lot of them are going to design something that makes the portfolio look great. And a lot of them, I looked up a stat recently. I think it was like 80% of what gets designed in residential custom home building doesn't get built.
Yeah.
And if you think about that, it's like, well, you can, that's terrible. It's like, sure. But from the architect's perspective, all their scope was to design something. That's it. They've designed it. The design is done. Now you can photorealistically render it, and it doesn't matter if it got built. To most people, the architecture is done. And now plenty of architects are going to listen to that. That's not how sure. Understood. Plenty of architects that we work with wouldn't approach it that way. Plenty of architects want to see their project built. Never mind. Let's think about the 20% that does get built. What's the percentage of the projects that do get built that aren't overly compromised to the point where they'd rather promote the renders than the final product?
And I think that's what not the bigger issue, but that's a huge issue for me, where to hire somebody, and if you're hiring an architect who's doing their job and spending the necessary time and not just cannibalizing other designs to create a product for you, or just regurgitating a lot of what they're already doing with boilerplate designs and details, how are they even judging what a job should cost? How are they? It just seems that you're paying so much money for this, and you're investing in somebody that the biggest aspect of, almost like, it doesn't matter how much money people have, the budget is always a massive part of that conversation.
Well, I think,
like, how is that not something that's brought up or a concern? Or, like, as an architect, right, how would I begin? And I'm not saying that all architects are doing this, but if I were an architect and I were to design something, just like I'm a contractor and I go to build something, I would have to have some consideration for budget, and there would have to be some accountability on my behalf to ensure that my clients aren't bleeding money, or that I'm not leading them down a path that's not realistic or able to be achieved or will ever come to fruition, especially when they're investing all of this money up front to try and obtain and meet their needs.
Hey guys, quick break. Make sure you head over to moderncraftsman.co, sign up for our newsletter. I've said it 100 times. It's where we're sharing a lot more in-depth behind the scenes stuff. It's also where you're going to get deals on things that we put out. We have the pre-construction course, a bunch of digital downloads, a bunch of just content that's going to help you build a better business, build a better life, become more profitable, make more money, all the things that you want, and probably why you're listening to this podcast. So sign up, moderncraftsman.co, sign up for the newsletter. We'll see you in the inbox. Let's unpack this, because I think there's 4 type of architects that I've worked with. I've worked with the architects that take the client on the journey, design something, and ultimately it's way over their budget, and the architect's upset. The architect has a fully baked design, can promote it as something that they completed. It never got built, but it's fine. They got paid. The design is done. Then you have the architects that take historic data and they try to be savvy with it. But the problem is that the build process takes 2 to 3 years. They designed it a year prior to that. And then when they go to do another project, they're looking at cost data from a house that was priced 2-3 years ago. So it's like, oh, that house that we did right there, yeah, that was $700 a square foot. It's like, well, that was 3 years ago. Now that house is $950 a foot. And so they're coming in low, and then they're designing with that understanding, and then they go price it, and oh yeah, the builder's more expensive. What's going on with the builder? Why is he charging so much? And then you have the guys that are doing competitive bid, where it's like, hey, we'll design something, we'll bring it to a pricing phase, and then we'll go and talk to a bunch of builders and get them to compete on price. And the problem with that is the incentives aren't stacked appropriately. The best version I've ever seen of that is where an architect, and I'm all for introducing multiple builders to clients. I think clients should talk to 2, 3, 4 builders, but not necessarily make them go through a bidding exercise, and certainly not make the decision based on that. But interviewing builders, 100%, you should be interviewing.
Yeah, why wouldn't you?
Like, you should be talking to a handful of builders, get to know their process. The best version of the bidding, the financial bidding I've seen, is where they said, forget everything under general conditions, concrete, site work, all that is going to be what it is. Yeah. Show me how your general conditions would stack on a job like this. So now it's, okay, he's got $1 million in general conditions. This guy over here is $500,000. This guy is $300,000. It's like, hold on, before you just hire the $300,000, let's make sure we understand what those general conditions are across the board. The guy 300, he's got nothing in it. He's got, a little bit of supervision and site protection and temporary facilities. The guy at $1 million, he's got a full supervision staff that is going to oversee the project. He's got a project manager that's going to manage submittals and RFIs, and he's going to be the glue between architect and client. Like, these are different builders. And I'm not saying the guy charging $1 million is better, but this is where it comes to client expectation. If the client is expecting a well-run and most importantly, well-communicated project, it would be hard for me to trust that the guy charging 300 versus the $1 million is going to be able to do as good of a job communicating. I'm not saying he's a bad communicator. I'm saying he simply doesn't have the bandwidth to communicate like the guy that has, and I'm saying from equal amounts of caring going into the project, but the guy that has a dedicated PM, dedicated super, and then oversight on top of that, and a project management platform and dedicated general labor, like, that guy has the bandwidth because he's built that within the project.
And at the end of the day, that's just part of meeting your client's needs and what their program is and what's important to them. Because there's plenty of people who maybe that doesn't matter as much to them as just, hey, I want this job done really well. Like, I'm really concerned with the level of execution, and I don't necessarily need that type of communication, right? So, like, to me, that's just fit and understanding what your client's program is, which I think is a huge part of design. Like, if you're designing a home, or you're designing a space, or you're designing a project, you need to understand your client's program and what their vision is, both with regard to the job, with regard to budget, timeline, all of their needs. Like, what defines this client? What are their expectations? And then how can I partner them with a team that's going to make this a successful project? I just feel from a design standpoint that there's little accountability once that design's in motion or completed to understand, like, what are the financial impacts of all of these decisions and designs and details that we're creating. Because if you're just designing for the sake of designing and you don't care if it's going to get built or not, essentially you're just ripping people off. And if you've done this for long, like, sure, I understand that you don't understand how much it's going to cost. I don't understand how much it's going to cost, but you at least need to be asking questions or having some sort of accountability when this client's coming to you as the first person in this process and they have a budget, regardless of how wealthy they are or how little money they have. They have a number in their head. They have a cap. They know what they can afford per month. Like, people understand this stuff, and you should be you should be spearheading a project with accountability for that. And like, I don't understand how you would even, and I'm trying to, like, as I'm talking to you, I'm trying to come up with an analogy in my world, but it would be the same thing as me getting a design from somebody and then saying, hey, yeah, we can do this, and then handing it over to subcontractors and just saying they're just going to bill you and I'll put a percentage on this, but I don't really know what it's going to cost. We're just going to build it, and my subs will dictate what it costs at the end of the day. And if if the job gets completed or you run out of money, I don't really care.
Right.
Like, to me, that's the same thing. Like, there should be accountability there when you're designing something, that you should understand why things cost what they do. And it shouldn't just be, generally I design stuff that's $350 to $600 a square foot, because there's so much that goes into that. And I don't understand why that can't be easier from the outset to align a client with a builder or a contractor or a renovator based on their needs and their program. And I think that budget is such a massive part of everyone's program.
Well, I think let's talk, the other side of that is, sure, it costs what it costs and the client deals with it. And if you run out of money, it's not my problem. The other issue I see a lot around here is that, social media, I'll see an architect post an amazing project. I've done this a couple times. I reach out, hey, is there a builder on that job? No, there's not. Amazing. I want, send me the drawings. I would love to take a peek at it. I would love to be considered. We can work on pre-construction. No, you're going to be too much. How do you know that? What do you mean I'm going to be too much? And so I remember I talked to him, and this particular project was like, we're not going to send it to you because the budget's $500 a square foot. To be clear, what was designed was $1,000 per square foot house. And internally we were talking about, I'm like, it doesn't make sense. You can't build what is designed. Truthfully, I ended up getting the drawings through a sub because I was like, send me the drawings. I want to see how they're building at $500 a square foot. And they're not. What's happening is that the design is done and they're finding the guy that will build a watered down version of it for $500. But the architect doesn't drive the vision anymore. So all of a sudden this beautiful design this is going back to the comment I made earlier. This beautiful design is done, fully rendered. They can promote the hell out of it. Look at how beautiful this home is designed. And then you watch it get built and you drive by it a couple of years later and you're like, that's not the same house.
But to me, dude, like, how do you have your sign out front of that job? Right? Like, how are you maintaining that relationship? How are you getting more referrals? How are you building a more robust?
Because you're the only one promoting the fact that you can build this particular architecture for $500 a square foot. It's like, no, you can't. You design it, like, and it doesn't get built the way that you design.
The proof is in the pudding. At the end of the day, if
you drive by the house, if you drive by the house,
correct. But how would you not want to be a part of that?
There's no money. To me, they don't have the money, so we'll allow it to end up for the watered down version, so we can say it was built.
And the other question would be, how is their value there that you just exhausted how much of their budget on designing something that they can't afford from the get-go, or they'll never be able to achieve from the get-go? Like, why not reduce your fee by 30% and build something that they can afford?
Great advice. Or how about the fact that they build it for the 500 and they have to make all of these compromises, and now it's a fucking nightmare to maintain, or there's issues with it. I got to be careful here. I watched a project that we were supposed to build, years ago. I watched it get built. And the things that the client cared about in that early process were not executed upon. So I'm watching the house get built to a point where it will fail for the very reasons that we were more expensive.
Yeah.
And this, like, talk about frustrating, where it's like, I could have built the same house that you're building for what he is charging. You didn't want that. So the issue now, and this goes to something I said earlier too, but the issue is the client doesn't know. And we do our best to communicate, like, this is the difference. But all someone has to do is have more confidence in their tone and say, Nick's making this too complicated. What we're going to do, it'll last a lifetime. Don't worry about it. Hey, he said it will last a lifetime. I'm good. And I think this goes into the decisions that clients make. And this is with everything. But I really think, I'm generalizing again, but I do believe that most clients, they think they want to be part of the decision making. They don't. They don't want to make the decision. And I'll give you an example. And this is like a rule that I try to drill into my team's head here, is that we don't go to a client and say, what do you want? We don't. That's not what we do. We don't say, hey, what do you want to do? What do you want to do here? Like, what are you thinking for this tile? They hired us, just like in pre-construction, they hired us as the professional. They expect us to be the professional. We are not there to collect information and regurgitate it. You are to go into the project and recommend, hey, this is what we're going to do. Most of the time, more than 50, close to 90% of the time, a client's like, that sounds great. Because the opposite is, hey, let me give you an example. Hey, what do you guys want to do for door handles? This client, the client at this point in time has 0% knowledge of door handles. Meanwhile, we probably have 50% knowledge of door handles, right? What's on the market, maybe more.
Yeah.
Client has 0%. So now you have just put a decision on their plate, and they have to, in a very short amount of time, go from 0% knowledge of door handles to now educating themselves on door handles, and then making a decision about which door handle they want and feeling confident in that decision, and then delivering that decision only for us to say, what? Oh, I wouldn't use that brand. They suck. It's a broken process where it's like, hey, I know we're coming up. We need a door handle selection. This is what we would recommend on this project based on serviceability, blah, blah, blah. Client's going to be like, that sounds great. And if they don't like it, they will communicate it in that moment.
It's also that, like, they want to be a part of the decision-making process that's mostly a trust or a lack thereof.
Yeah.
Right. So it's like, if
that is being part of the decision-making process, I'm running it by you.
Correct.
Thumbs up,
but like
thumbs
the
down.
reason that they want or feel as though they need to be a bigger part of that is because of a lack of trust in the first place. Where if they understood, like most of my clients, hey, what do you want? Like the job I'm doing now, you don't want like normal lattice or screening on this, right? I don't know, what's that look like? Well, it's going to be less expensive. It's just not that nice. There'll be maintenance issues. It's just not super nice. This is what we typically are going to do. It's going to be a little bit more money. Yeah, that's great. But like, they trust us, so they want to sign off on stuff, but they don't need to have their hand in every single minute detail of a project. And I've had clients like that, and the reason that they are because of either bad experience, it's our first time working with them, or a lack of trust in the first place. But if you have their best interest in mind, if you're being stewards for them and their project, I feel that most of my clients don't need to be and don't want to be part of every single decision that goes into a project. If there's something that's really important to them, or it's been a hang up for them in the past, or something that they really just love or hate, yeah, I want you to speak your mind. But no, I don't want you to be in every single fucking decision of this project, because one, you don't do this every day. Yeah. Two, you hired me because you know what we do. Yeah. And then three, like, it's just going to complicate this process and make for a much worse experience, and honestly a worse product, because I know what you should be doing and what you shouldn't be doing
Yeah.
based on all parameters of your project, all parameters of your program. And to me, I don't think that I should be the only one who's doing that. And I think that that should be part of the conversation during the design stage. And I don't want this, but I don't want this to be ragging on architects, engineers, interior designer, any sort of design in general. But I've had a lot of issues with what we're discussing with its architects, with its draft people, with if it's interior designers, where yeah, they do want to create a golden egg and they want what they want, and there's certain aspects of things that they just want to be really cool for the sake of that project or for the sake of documenting it, but everything else goes out the window, or they don't care about how much it costs, or they don't understand how that's going to impact the project. And I'm like, this should be a major part and component of the design of this job. And I just can't imagine doing anything, putting pen to paper, beginning that process without understanding what your client's needs are very, very explicitly.
Mm-hmm.
And I just find it hard to imagine. Like I could, I'm not an architect, right? But there's a lot of jobs where I can handle the design of projects because it's pretty straightforward. And I just like, say it was a kitchen, right? And we were keeping the same layout. We're going to move cabinets around, but like, it's not a restructure or reformat. Yeah, I can lay this kitchen out and figure this out. I would have to know a lot of information about what that client's needs are, including how they live in that kitchen, what their design aesthetic is, how much they want to spend on the project, how much time they're thinking it's going to take, like what's important to their program before I ever started that project or designed that project or gave them any sort of budgeting. How could I ever just take on a project like that and do pre-construction on this project and sign this client up and then be like, yeah, we're 3x what we thought it was going to be because I didn't realize this is what you wanted. Like that just seems that you're not in tune. And that's not to say that I haven't done precons that haven't actually come to fruition, because there have, but it's because I didn't have a design or a workable or a realistic design for what the client wanted to spend. It's always been, this is what we want to spend. I'm not handling design. Design comes to me and I'm like, well, the way this is designed is way more than you wanted to spend in the first place. And there's certain things that we can negotiate on. There's certain things that we can value engineer, but ultimately there's just too big of things that we can't work around without a complete redesign or without spending twice what you want to spend. So it comes down to communication. And it comes down to not having your vision aligned with the designer's vision and also the budget and concerns for budget in the first place. I think that there are much better ways to begin this process, especially with our industry. Like I just got an email from somebody who wanted to get on a consulting call with me. And they said that in one of my recent midweeks, what resonated with them is that I mentioned there's no rules in this industry. There's really not standards. That the way that you do something, the way that your business is comprised, the way that you price things, your system, what you require to be in business, how you operate can be 180 degrees from the way that I operate in business. And that's not right and that's not wrong. And we could possibly bid on the same project. Mm-hmm. And what you're going to do and what I'm going to do are two completely different things. Not right, not wrong, but they're just two completely different things. And how do homeowners not know that? How aren't designers matching people up with Nick as a contractor and Tyler as a contractor, because we're completely different? And it's good in some ways, but for me, it's also been terrible at the forefront of my career, where I was bidding projects for people who never would have hired me in the first place because what I was doing wasn't important to them. And I just didn't understand that there were other clients out there that would value that more. And to me, like, that's why it's even more important, because there's not a baseline, there's not a standard. Every single business in residential construction is a fucking unicorn, every one of them, and there's no rhyme or reason for it other than people are making shit up, and this is the way that we do things because we think it's what works for us. But it's not like, hey, this is what you want out of this job, and these are what your needs are. Go to this group of contractors because this is what they specialize in, this is their price point. Like, it's not like that. It's just, oh, hey, we like that, let's call them. Oh, we saw this person, our neighbor used them and they said that they're pretty good, let's use them. And you're just picking shit because you don't know what you're picking, and you're throwing darts at the wall seeing what sticks, and it's like there's no rhyme or reason to anything. Like, there's no systems, there's no standards, there's no baseline other than maybe the building code, which, like, still is a very, very low bar. It's like nothing's the same. You how do you compare anything to anything in our industry?
No, and I think this is why, there's such an importance around understanding who your ideal client is. I as you're talking, I'm thinking about the car industry. It's like whether you buy a Honda or a Mercedes, it's like you're speaking to two different. They do the same thing. They're gonna get you, like, they're gonna get you to the same place. It's just a different experience, and one person's going to value what a Mercedes brings to the table versus a Honda.
But they also, people know that, like, somebody who somebody's not going to go to Mercedes and be like, are you crazy? I can get this Hyundai down the street. Like, they're not even going to entertain that. They would be laughed at, and they would understand why.
But I think that's because that is so transparent. We, as contractors, it's like we hold the pricing, like, let's just talk about
because contractors don't know what it costs to build a house, and neither designers. You're telling me that Hyundai and Ford don't know what it costs to build a car?
No, I'm not saying that. I'm saying that we don't, like, that we're not communicating that in a transparent way where it's like, hey, we are more expensive, mainly because we want the work. But it's why the architect designed something that the client can't afford, because they want it.
Sure, but they also don't know. Like, they just don't know.
I think, but that would be, if we're going to stick on the car analogy, I think that's the guy building a custom car for the first time, where the guy that's been building houses for 50 years, if like he's built a system behind it, he can probably tell you what it's going to cost. He's done it enough times. He's got the reps in, and this is.
But that guy's also not going to put an extra $200,000 into your house that he didn't budget for, where the rest of our industry is probably going to do that because they don't understand on the back end.
Well, but to support what you're saying is you're speaking to a large demographic of people that are, and primarily, like, a lot of people who listen to this podcast are early in their career and they're trying to figure it out. And so the premise of my email that I had talked about earlier in this episode is, me going through that tier 1 estimate and putting together a budget is, like, really valuable for a client and gets us in the door and ultimately should sell them on signing us for pre-construction. But it's also giving me more reps. It's another project I get to work through top down and understand it. It's building my database. It's building our system database. It's building. We have another house that we've priced. We know what that house costs. So when we get a similar one, guess what? We just did one last month. Let's compare it. And it's just more reps, and we're building confidence behind that because we're doing it more often.
It's crazy to me. I don't know. It's so screwed up. The entire, like, the basis for our industry and what the expectation of what people want and need from us and what we're supposed to deliver, where it's you could go to any other industry, you could look at a mechanic, right? And it's like, well, yeah, what's at stake if you really botch accounting for how long it's going to take to do a brake job, right? Mm-hmm. Like, how much you really gonna lose? But it's like, all right, now how many brake jobs in time would it require to build a house? And you're supposed to guess. Like, there's so much at stake, and you never can get enough reps in our industry unless you really dig your heels in and say, this is what we're delivering. Here's the system. Like, that's multi-generational businesses that have done this and have developed systems for years and years and years and years, where our industry is made up of, when TRG closes its doors, that's it. Like, I don't want my kids, like, my kids aren't going to take this over and take everything that I know and learn from it. Like, there's not enough data, and there's not enough reps in 95% of our industry to have the accuracies that we should have to be in business.
I agree to that to an extent, because I do think that you can build some of these like specifications, right? Like, rather than going and asking, what do you want to do? 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 It's, hey, this is what we're doing. You're in control. So it's not a matter of like just collecting information and then figuring it out. When you are part of that and guiding that, where it's like, hey, what should we be using for flooring? Oh, we're going to use Madeira. It's like, what Madeira costs, because that's what I use. I know what it costs, because I know that's what I use on every project. So I know what the price point is. And you do that, and this is where you're taking control and saying, this is what we're going to do. Now, when they say, well, we don't want to use Madeira, we actually have this, floor manufacturer that we want to use. It's this one. Okay, well, now I got to go back to zero and price it and get that information. Fine.
Sure, but like, how about day one you show up on the job and you hit ledge? Like,
yeah, I'm not saying it's you can go into every project knowing what it's going to cost, but I do think that there's efficiencies that can be had that many of us never even take the opportunity to consider creating those efficiencies.
Absolutely. Like, I 100% agree with that. I just think that unless you're building a cookie cutter, it's going to be really difficult. Like, how many houses can you build as a small company where, sure, like, when you compare it to a bigger business in a different industry, right? Or cars, like, they're producing more cars in a week than houses you'll ever build in your entire lifetime. So like, there's just so many opportunities for learning. And I mean, even for example, dude, I went to wrap these porch columns in ASIC post wraps that they make for 6x6s, and the inside of the post sleeve was less than 5 3/4. So like, they're all miter locked columns, and I go to wrap them, and some of my 6x6s are 5 3/4. Some of them aren't perfectly straight, and ASIC makes a post wrap that's supposed to be 5 3/4 on the inside, and it's 5 11/16. And now if anything's out of plumb, like, the post wraps don't go around the posts. And that's like, yeah, it takes a job like this for me to learn that, but who's expected to pay for that? That's just a learning curve on mine. And then am I going to retain that 2 decades from now when I'm not as hands-on in the business and somebody else goes to use like an ASIC post wrap? Like, it's shit like that we're not doing enough scale in our type of business to truly reap the rewards. And I think a lot of that falls on our shoulders. And I think it's the same with architects too, right? How many designs are they doing in a lifetime to understand the impact of every single detail and decision that they're making, unless they're just using the same details over and over again?
And I think that is an incredible point, where this is why you have to approach projects as a design build collaborative effort, whether you're design build or not. Like, this is the power of pre-construction, right? The architect does not have the cost data. The builder does not have the design data. Work together and develop it together. And it's not a matter of price the design and then try to value engineer it. Work together. And I think that's what, like, it kind of goes over people's head. And I want to come back to the comment I made earlier about, clients don't want to make decisions. We're working on a project with an architect, and we have a list of growing questions, and we're under construction. And my team's like, this is going to delay us. So I'm looking at the questions or we're talking about the questions. I said, let's pivot and approach this the way we would with a client. I don't know what the question is, but just for example, if they say, if the question is, what color do you want to paint the outside of the house? That's an open question. No answer, nothing. Instead, I want us to just go through that and be like, hey, we're going to paint the house blue. Hey, we're going to use this subway tile in the bathroom. And just make the decisions based on what we think we know, right? And ultimately, there's probably a good portion of those questions that they'll just be like, yep, thumbs up, thumbs up. And then they're like, whoa, no, we're not painting it blue. It's red. I just need to get you the color code on that red. That's what's slowing me down. Now we go from 20 open questions to most of them we know we're just trying to get verification on. And then we understand why, we don't have the color red yet, because they need the color code. And it's just us going in rather than having this question, because otherwise nothing is happening. No movement, open-ended question, project is stalled out because we don't know what color the house is being painted. I can't even prime it because it needs to be a tinted primer, whatever. But now you're saying this is what we're doing and get the response. And I think that's I think that's the position that we take. And again, to support what you were saying, it's okay. Builder and architect have their respective roles, and they work together and ultimately figure out a way to build what the client is looking for. The reality is, many times something will be designed that they cannot afford, and especially when you're being paid for pre-construction, your role is to help them get as close to that goal as possible.
And the other thing to consider is you have to understand what the capacity of that budget is with regard to that project. Because if you start something that is not affordable to build, you have to finish that. And you can't just say good enough is good enough. You can't walk away from that. Like if the expectation was there and you signed a contract and you started that project, it's on you to complete that. And I think that it's really, really important to understand realistically what your budget is, because regardless of the job, of how big or how small it is, you will never be able to fully wrap your head around and capture every single detail of that build. Every single day is going to be different. You're going to hit traffic days that you don't hit on other days. It might rain one day. You may be inefficient because a tool breaks down one day. There's no way to properly quantify every single aspect of every job. It's creating budgets and allowances within your budget and within your numbers and within your systems and your processes to account for the averages of all of those things, and create a budget that's realistic based on your client's expectations. It doesn't matter what project I do. I create a very defined, explicit, comprehensive budget, but it's still based on me guessing at a lot of things. I understand how much it costs me to do that, and I understand what the scope of work is, but a lot of times I'm not figuring out exactly what's going into that until I go to do it. Like even the job I'm on now, right? How much is the PVC going to cost? How am I going to wrap this? How's the screen system going to integrate? It's not until I get in there and start mocking things up that this is how this has to be layered. And I need 1x8 here, not 1x6 there. And maybe I only accounted for 1x6 there. So do I have enough wiggle room in that budget? Did I account for enough to make sure that I've covered myself to execute that contract and that project as per how that client expected it to be? What expectation did I set forth? And if I didn't do a good job of that, I'm going to eat a lot of costs on that project. I'm going to. So it's how am I creating fair enough averages throughout a project and a comprehensive enough scope and budget that I'm protecting myself based on the design to be able to execute that project so that I'm making the money that I need to, and my clients are happy and I'm meeting their expectations. Because even the smallest projects, you're not going to be able to capture and quantify every detail that goes into it. It's just absolutely impossible.
No, but I will say that if you're having a hard time pricing something or understanding what it costs, break it down. Break down the scope. Really understand what goes into it. And, example, pricing a project right now, it's got a pretty complicated site drainage plan, like really, really detailed. So I basically took the drainage plan and I took all of the notes that are on there, like Cultec this, Cultec, like PVC that, and got all the notes listed out. And then I was like, all right, I don't even know what some of this stuff is. So I do a little research, but then it's like, all right, well, I have drainage pipe around the whole house. Why don't I start by understanding how much I have? Oh, I have 350 linear feet of 4-inch, Sked 80, drainage pipe around the house. Someone's going to be like, you don't use Sked 80 underground, whatever. And so I'm going to look at quantities. All right, I got 350 linear feet of this. Like, what's that cost? Like, what's the material cost in that? Like, that doesn't mean that's what it's going to cost, but hey, like, let me start understanding this, break it down into little tiny chunks that I can understand. And then next thing I know, it's like, oh, this actually isn't that complicated. There's just a lot of information here. I got 350 linear feet, all of it daylights, and it just ties into downspouts. And there's one sand trap here. And look at that. I have the spec of the sand traps right there. I can call Shay, precast and get a price on that. Boom. Now I know 350 feet of this. I got some site work. I got a precast sand trap, like so on and so forth. So my point is like, especially on these more complicated jobs, break it down. Like, really understand how much of something is going into that one particular piece of scope, because that's going to give you the confidence to understand, or at least the confidence behind a swag where you're just, a scientific wild ass guess. Just being able to say, you know what, I got 4,000 square feet of pre-finished white oak. And I know that I did a job over here and it was only 1,000 square feet of white oak, but it cost me $22 a square foot. Okay. Hold that as your original allowance. You have data. Plug that in. That might be wrong. You can even call your floor guy and be like, hey, I know you did this one. It's $22 a square foot. I got this one coming up. It's 4,000 square feet. Anything I should consider? I'm not asking for a price right now, but I'm going to carry $22 a square foot. And a lot of times, they'll give me the thumbs up. Yeah, that sounds good. Or, oh, no. I can do it. If it's over 1,000 square feet, usually my price drops down to 18.
I think the problem is with a lot of guys and girls is that we're doing so many different things, and we a lot of us don't have. You're starting a business, and your business might be 20, 30 years that business is around for, and then the next person's starting at ground zero. So a lot of the data and the historical information isn't quite there. So you're doing anything that you can. You're doing different type of projects. You don't have these systems, and if you don't account for something, even on my job now, it's like, what if I the way that this has to be built, I thought that they were going to be a certain size PVC, and now I need 10 more of a bigger size, and PVC costs $100 a sheet now, and right, that's $1,000 more. There's people who are pricing jobs where that $1,000 is eating into their margins and their profits substantially. And I think that's where the bigger issue comes in, where it's like you need the time up front to be able to create a realistic budget. And these shortcomings where I can break things down as much as I want, but a lot of times it's not until I get there and I start building, and I'm starting at the end of the job when I'm cleaning up to wrap my head around, like, how is this area going to tie together with all of these different materials? How am I going to finish that? It's not specced out on the design. The design, we're not getting 80-page drawings for these type of projects, and it's not all there. How am I accounting for all of this? And right, you miss a couple of sheets of this, a couple of sheets there, and now you're $10,000 short on a job that, right, that was supposed to be a lot of your profit on that project. And I think that's where a lot of people run into things, and where it's so important to understand the inefficiencies of your business and where you're losing money, where you're making money, and how to account for that. Like, I know on every job that there's going to be inefficiencies, there's going to be mistakes, and there's going to be things that I do not account for in a budget. And I have separate line items, or when I go to account for those line items, I will put a buffer on them to make sure that I'm covered, because I've just learned over the years that what I'm anticipating and what's drawn may not wind up that way. So is that a conversation I want to have with my client, or do I just want to account for it and then have the money in the budget to do it the way that it needs to be done? Because like there's times where in order to do it right, you can't wrap your head that far down the road at how that's coming together. And especially dude on big, like I can't even imagine on bigger jobs, right? Where you're planning and accounting for stuff that's 24 months down the road. Like, how is this going to come together? I don't even know how we're getting a hole in the ground right now, let alone like, how am I going to finish off this little corner of the space to make sure it looks right? And I just spent 12 hours trying to make one little corner of a room look right on a 2-year long job. Like, how are you capturing those costs? And I think that's where it's really important to spend the time up front and understand all aspects of a project, including the mistakes, like not speaking to egregious mistakes or, hey, yeah, like this is something dumb that we did, or we forgot to put this in the wall, but just things that happen on a day-to-day basis that are going to create inefficiencies in your workflow, and be able to capture them throughout your job costs, because everyone's gonna experience them. Like nobody is insulated and protected from that crap. Not like nobody, even me. It's just me on the job. Like I make mistakes. I have to fix things. There's things I don't account for. And the bigger you are, the more people you have, the more complex your business is, you're going to experience that more and more. It's unavoidable. Communication breaches. It just happens. So you need to be able to account for that and set that expectation with clients and be able to capture those costs up front. And for me, so much of that is just through Precon and tracking my costs daily and understanding I was just looking at the budget for my project now, and I looked at what I budgeted for, at what point of the job I'm at, literally what I've spent every single day with every single dollar accounted for, and what's left in the budget and how much time I think I have left on the job, to make sure that I'm where I need to be on this.
How you doing?
Good. I mean, I'm like, I always feel that I'm behind the 8 ball, but it's like you get to a point where I'm like, oh, I gotta push, right? And then all of a sudden you're like, oh shit, it's all done. I have extra time in this budget. So to me, that's typically what happens. Like I get halfway done the job and I'm like, oh damn, I'm halfway done the job. Like I need to get moving. I don't feel like I'm halfway. And then all of a sudden it's like, oh yeah, you're kind of done. So yeah, I'm good. I know exactly how much money I have left on this job. I know exactly where we went over, that if like the conversation's been had with the client that, hey, like I've literally had this conversation. I'm very confident in where our numbers are right now. I know that we exhausted more of the budget during these 3 points. I'm not going to charge more money until we get to the end of the job and see where we stand. But like, if there are overages, it's going to be because of this, this, and this. But like, I don't want to take more money right now or extend the budget until we see what happens on the back end. So like, if things start going out of whack or it takes longer, I've already had the conversation with the client that like up front, we ran into these things that were fully like unavoidable and unanticipated. If I can squeak it in with the budget, I will. If I can, I think it's going to be this much more. So yeah, like I feel good. You're always stressed closing a project out because you're getting down to the wire. There's less money left in the budget, and you just feel like there's a lot of work that still has to be put in place. But the only reason I'm able to manage all of that stuff because of my pre-construction, because of the budget, and then because I'm tracking that stuff every single day and invoicing and understanding where I stand with those projects. And if you're not doing that, you're just going to be putting work in place and with no regard for how your money's being spent or how your client's money's being spent. It's very minimal. And I was actually going to text you earlier about this, but so when I got a price for this project, for this porch, I initially was like, at the point when the roof gets on, I'm not going to have my staging on the job to be I won't be at the point where I'm ready to do fascia and soffits. Like, I just won't be there yet. So I asked my roofer when he did the roof to do fascia and soffits. And it's only a 250 square foot addition, so it's not like huge, but that was in his scope. And he was supposed to give me progress invoices throughout the job, just didn't, and invoice me for the whole job at the end. And I ended up doing all the fascia and all the soffits myself. So to me, I'm like battling with myself. Do I just want to throw my roofer a bone and pay him for the whole job? Or do I want to be like, hey, back this cost out? And ultimately, I was like, hey, can you back this cost out? Because the angle that I realized is like, I'm charging my client for this, right? And I already charged her for me to do that. And if it's T&M, is it fair for me to charge her for somebody else to do it as well because I want to throw my roofer a bone? Like, if I want to throw my roofer a bone, it shouldn't come
That's you doing it, not the client.
Correct. My client is now paying the roofer to do that. So, like, I would still need him to back out that cost. And then I could charge my client that cost. I could pay him the full check amount. But like, I just can't look at it that way, that I'm throwing my roofer a bone. And even if it's only a few $100, like, that's not fair to charge my client for that when I did it myself.
Right.
So like, ultimately that's the decision that I made, to be like, hey, I need you to back this out of the cost, because like, I can't double dip into my client for that. But that's the type of stuff that, like, I don't know. It comes up on every job, and if you're not on top of those things and you don't account for those things, and like, my clients, I can't have my client paying for stuff and double dipping and paying twice for stuff that, like, it's just not fair. So I was going to text you about that earlier, and then I was just like, no, you know what, like, if I want to throw my roofer a bone, I need to throw my roofer a bone. It can't be my client footing that. So that's where I wound up with that decision. So I didn't text you anyway.
There you go.
But I felt like I was being like petty about being like, hey, can you back this cost out of that? But like, realistically, whatever his invoice is, I'm taking that, I'm putting my percentage markup on it, and then just directly billing the client for it. So I don't know. Like, it takes the human aspect out of it when I have that transactional like perception of it.
I would have recommended the same thing.
Well, thanks. Damn, I feel like we were just kind of heated for a little bit there.
I would say I have a whole nother topic I want to get into, but I'm going to save it for another episode.
All right.
Guys, if you want more about what this process looks like, and like I said, I share a ton of this through our email list, moderncraftsman.co. Sign up for the newsletter, dropping some great, real world examples. This is stuff that I'm sharing more and more about exactly what I'm working on. The email I sent out this week that I mentioned, is a project that I literally submitted a tier 1 estimate an hour before I sent that email. So this is live happening. And as Tyler mentioned, a bunch of you guys replied to that email asking for, I offered up, does anyone want to see the email I sent to said client to see how I formatted it? And now I have 100 people I got to go and respond to. So I'll get that out here before the end of the week. But make sure you sign up for the newsletter. And as always, we appreciate you listening. See you next week.